trustees for Goose Creek CISD. Mrs. Guy, was the meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
And do we have a quorum?
We do.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Sandy Conklin.
All right.
For opening exercises.
Good afternoon, Mr. Campisi, Board President, Board members, and Dr. O'Brien. Today, our opening exercises will be done by Mrs. Guy, the pledge, and Mr. Sampson will be offering the prayer.
Excuse me. And my Heavenly Father, thank you once again for opening our eyes and letting us come as one to this room. Father, we make decisions and we control lives, and we are always thankful for the kids and teachers and administrators that we have. Father, thank you again for everything that you give us, both personally and non-personal. Thank you again for all of this. In Christ Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Dr. Conklin. I'll bring your attention to item number 3 has been withdrawn administratively from the agenda, and we'll move on to item number 4, which is citizens participation. Citizens participation is the time that the board will hear public concerns or public comments from those who have properly signed up to address the board. At regular board meetings, the board shall permit public comment regardless of whether the topic is an item on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. General public comment is limited to no more than 30 minutes per meeting. At all other board meetings, public comment shall be limited to open session items on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. Each speaker is reminded that he or she is limited in his or her presentation to a maximum of 3 minutes, which can be further reduced by the presiding officer, and that he or she should respect confidentiality concerns and refrain from attacking the personal character of any individual student, staff member, or board member in addressing concerns or comments. Pursuant to state law and board policy be illegal, the board cannot consider or take action on concerns at this meeting unless they pertain to an item posted on the agenda for this meeting. Any deliberation or decision on an item that is not posted for consideration at this meeting shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on the agenda of a future meeting. With that being said, we have one person signed up to speak, Mr. David Isaac. If you would, please approach the podium, state your name, the topic you'll be speaking on. Ms. Guy, our secretary, will begin time. She will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining. You'll have a total of 3 minutes.
Excellent, I appreciate that. Just tell me when to begin. All right. Good evening, Goose Creek School Board of Trustees. Tonight, I know that you have pushed off the agenda item to discuss naming the personnel building, the professional development building. I'm here to speak in favor of an individual I believe that we should nominate. But before I get there, I want to ask you, when was the last time, let me quiz you, when was the last time we had a board meeting on a federal holiday, a national federal holiday? Anybody know the answer to that? It was the last time y'all had a meeting on June 19th, 2025. This school district doesn't have a good record of respecting traditions and local histories, in my opinions, in some regards, especially when we look at how we decided to host a board meeting on June 19th a federal holiday when we should be at home spending time with our family and reflecting on what that holiday means. What that holiday meant to me is that I came up here to nominate a woman of color. We don't have many buildings named after a woman of color. Okay, but that woman I would like to nominate is Miss Susan Moore Fontenot. Number one, she did over 40 years of work, of professional development work here, starting in the 80s at Goose Creek. Many of our finest teachers was hired by her from her work as Director of Personnel for Primary Education. Secondly, her nonprofit work, the work that she chose to do on her own. She didn't have to do that work. She wasn't employed to do that work. She did much nonprofit work, endless lists. I don't have the time here tonight. I only got 3 minutes. I can't talk about Susan's nonprofit work, but one of my favorite ones was the Bay Area Education and Recruitment and Retention Program. Taught many students to become teachers. That's professional development at its finest. And if any of you want to schedule a debate with me later on, you got somebody else you think that's better than Susan Moore Fontenot as far as professional development, I'd be happy to hear it.
1 minute.
Thank you. And finally, the power of the people. Over 900 people decided to vote for her in the last election cycle, and they have been for 6 different election cycles since the 1980s to represent them on the Lee College School Board at large all over this town. So I would like people, so if we need to get a petition, I don't think that would be a hard thing to do if that becomes a requirement, if that's what I'm saying. So please take my speech into consideration. Please take the last speech into consideration. That includes, what this national holiday means. Perhaps we won't do that next year. And let's talk about what Susan Moore Fontenot means today, Susan Moore Fontenot means yesterday, and what Susan Moore Fontenot means tomorrow. I'm David Isaac, and I approve this speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac. And that concludes citizens' participation. We'll move on to item number 5, approval of minutes, beginning with item 5A, the June 2nd, 2025 minutes for the regular board meeting. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion by Mrs. Guy.
A second.
And a second by Ms. Helen Barat-Timms. Is there any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? It's
Keep it up, Howard.
4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 0 against. The motion carries. Move on to item 5B. The item is the minutes for the regular board meeting for June 19th, 2025. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion by Mrs. Guy
Second.
and a second by Ms. Helen Barat-Timms. Is there any discussion? All those in favor by a show of hands to approve the minutes? The motion is unanimous and passes. Moving on to item 6, discussion items, and I'll turn it over to Dr. O'Brien.
Good evening. This evening we will have 3 superintendent's reports, the first one being preliminary results from the 24-25 STAR test. Ms. Jackson will bring her team up and they will have about a 2-hour presentation on, okay. Welcome. If I could just remind each of you to introduce yourself as you begin your portion of the presentation.
Okay, good evening, President Campese, Dr. O'Brien, and school board members. We are here, and I really am excited to share this. I think that you're going to be pleasantly happy with this information. And so I also have a new team that I want to make sure that we introduce. We all have Mr. Husband. He's been here. We know this face. But we have a new team member, Amy Maddie. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Amy Maddie. I'm going to be the liaison for social studies.
I'm Amy Henderson. I'm the new Associate Director of Mathematics.
Who's back?
I'm back. I'm new and old.
Hi, thank you for having faith in me. Sarah Flushy. I'm now the Elementary Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and I'm excited to support you all.
So no pressure on the new faces. It means, Mr. Clem, you have to be nice. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to James to start, and we're going to go through.
So we wanted to start the presentation tonight just by kind of reviewing some of the changes in the STAR test over the last 5 years since COVID. In 2021, we did resume STAR testing, but there were no ratings applied because it was rated declared a state of disaster. But in 2021, we moved to pretty much all online testing. Pretty much the entire state of Texas did that, so there was a transition there. In 21-22, TA piloted the new item types, and they began field testing the extended constructive responses. 22-23 was our big year of change. They went to a STAR 2.0, a full STAR redesign. They integrated extended constructive responses and short constructive responses. So basically, that just meant we had writing across all assessments. They updated the STAR blueprints. The big thing was that they increased the CCMR cut points tremendously. 23-24, they introduced AI-generated scoring. We're going to talk about that a little bit for the constructive responses. They had the new science teaks, and then there was no official increase in the scale score cut points, but they did not translate over very well. And I'm going to kind of explain that a little bit on the next slide. In 24-25, though, they did the scale scores thresholds were increased in math and RLA, and again, we're going to see that in a second. And they increased the use of machine scoring. So this is kind of the raw score changes I was talking about. So what a raw score is, it's not a percentage, all right? It is basically that each test, they have so many questions, so many item types. So like there may be for example, third grade RLA, there may be 44 questions. Well, the raw score is how many does it take to get to the approaches or get to the passing, all right? And so in you can see in 2021 what those raw scores were. And 21-22 what those raw scores were. And then when they implemented the new STAR 2.0, you'll see that for the first year in 22-23, they decreased them tremendously. And so you can look and see those, like for example, English 1 to English 2 went from 38 raw score to a 27 raw score. Even though TA said that the test was not harder, this kind of shows it was a little bit more rigorous. And then you'll see that in 23-24, they increased it a little bit more. But in 24-25, you can see that math and reading in particular were increased pretty much at every grade level.
If y'all will remember back in 22-23, that's when you saw a lot of campus grades sitting at a high B, and they would have a D in domain 1 and part of 2 and part of 3, and yet they carried a B. And if you can see that, I thought this was really a good picture for y'all to see why. And then they changed it, started moving them back up. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay, so what are we doing? One of the things I hear most is how are we compared to the state? So we took our test, and these are all tests for the district for 24-25, and then also the state test for 24-25. So for the district, with the approaches, we were at 62.4%, and we maintained that at about 62.5%. What did the state do? They had a 75% and dipped to a 62%. So right now we're just a hair better than the state. But the thing I want you to see is the drop the state had, and Goose Creek did not see that drop. So that's really good as far as closing those gaps. As far as the meet standard, we were at 34.5, and we went slightly up to a 34.8. What did the state do? They dropped from a 48 to a 42. By us maintaining that momentum, we closed that gap somewhat, not like we did in approaches, and we know that meets is where we've got to focus on. In the masters, we were at 11.8. We stayed pretty much the same at 11.9, but the state went from 20 to 19. So the exciting thing is we've closed that gap totally at the approaches level for this year, and we have also maintained while the state was making drops across the board. So the celebrations that we have is that, our STAR EOC English 1 and 2, we sent 51 of those tests. I think this is very important for y'all to understand because we have to pay to have those tests rescored. And Sarah and her team did a great job of finding scores that one AI said, yes, you did, you passed, and the other AI said, no, you didn't, pretty much, to put it simple. And we said, okay, if this AI had scored it like this AI, would we have passed? So they took 51 of those tests, had them rescored, and we had a 23.5% increase, meaning those students now do not have to retest, and that's a graduation requirement. We only did English 1 and English 2, and it was probably around $2,000 to get that done, but well worth the money for a kid to be able to walk across the stage and not have to retest. But what does that tell us? 23.5% is a big increase when you think about what the state said you didn't pass, and when it was rescored by humans, they passed. So all 3 elementary schools that y'all know that are comprehensively labeled, they're projected to have the label removed this school year. So we're very excited about that. And what are our opportunities? Well, we know that we have Bluebonnet curriculum coming in. If y'all are not aware, we have a star, Miss Lucy. She was on a commercial for Bluebonnet, just about, Region 4. She and I both participated, but she was the star. And we're really rolling things out very effectively. One of the things that we ask for is that that material be provided to us by campus. So once they unloaded that pallet that was said, this goes to Travis, then we reloaded it immediately and it all went to Travis. There was no group over there sorting materials and deciding how many campuses get each. So that was really amazing. And I have to give a shout out to Sharon Jason because it was really her behind the scenes. And then we want to make sure that we are really working on internalization. So we're changing what we're doing as far as our PD. We're really going to do a lot of intensive training with our APs this year to make sure that they know what to expect for this Bluebonnet curriculum and how the lesson plans, teachers are not producing lesson plans anymore. They're taking the lessons and internalizing them and making sure they understand what to do with them. We're revamping all of our leadership, so we're having a focus on our APs, our teachers to grow them into APs, and our APs that want to grow into being principals, as well as doing a grow your own for our counselors because we have a shortage of counselors right now. And so we met today, actually. We've had several meetings, and we're excited about what we're going to be doing with in the upcoming year with our leadership team. And really, we revised all our professional development and meetings to focus more on pedagogy and less on internalization because we're seeing a lot of teachers coming in that have the content knowledge, but they don't understand how to teach. So we're really going to really focus and hone in on pedagogy. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Alrighty, so I'm going to present this evening on RLA because we have a new friend joining us. Miss Sarah Lawrence is in the audience. She will be the new Associate Director for English Language Arts and Library Services in K-5 Social Studies, but I'm presenting tonight because that was my role last year. And so with regard to our overall performance for reading, our biggest gains were at elementary, and we're really excited about that because elementary is where the foundation is laid. And so our biggest gains in particular were at 3rd and 4th grade, to be specific. But you can see for approaches, we grew 1.3%, for meets 4%, 4.3%, and then for masters 1.4%. And I won't read through all of them, but you can just see overall we are trending in a positive way overall with language arts, except for EOC. EOC was sobering across the state, and you're probably hearing a lot of people talking about that data and what happened with the English 2 test. Some of it is excuse making, just out of a panic, to be honest. People are talking about text levels and text complexity, but the reality is that we did grow in our gaps with the state as well, and so we'll talk a little bit more about opportunities for growth there with EOC. So for our celebrations, I know you heard us talk a lot last year about what everybody lovingly refers to as the ECRs, which is the extended constructed responses. The previous year, we had a very poor showing on the ECRs, so it had to be a priority. And we saw everyone from campus principals to teaching and learning coaches and teachers really stepping up and taking ownership of that item type. The ECR is worth approximately 20 to 25% of every kid's STAR test. It's a lot. And we know that when a kid is good at an ECR, they're also good at the other things like revising and like editing and identifying, controlling idea. The ECR sort of transcends reporting categories for us. And we are so proud of our staff and of our students because in 7 out of the 8 grade levels, we closed the gap on the ECR with relationship to the zeros. The one grade we did not close was 7th. The gap didn't move at all. Okay, so it stagnated at 7th. But we are really proud of the students and the work they did with the ECR. For grades 3 through 5, like I was saying, that's where we saw the biggest gains, especially in 3rd and 4th grade, really making tremendous leaps to close the gap with the state, in particular at the approaches level. And so we did have increased performance for 3rd through 5. And then for 6 through 8, I know what you're saying when you're looking at the 6 through 8 data, because you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. We were consistent in our performance from last year to this year. Pretty much where we were last year is where we are, so then why is that under a celebration? Well, you probably remember us sitting here like 10 months ago, a little nervous about middle school. We had lost the literacy block, and we had lost the numeracy block as well. So our instructional minutes had gone from like 90 minutes a day down to 50. As a result of that, we had lost the number of staff members as well, because when you reduce the minutes, you increase the section, which reduces the staff. So we went from teams of 4 and 5 teachers to teams to 2 and 3. And when you have 2 teachers on a team and 1 is new, it can very much impact student outcomes. And then we also had a reduction in our intervention courses as well. And so to be sitting here 10 months later, knowing how anxious we all were about the obstacles that we were walking into, we're very proud that the scores didn't drop. We maintained. And we think one of the biggest levers for the success there were what we call the lift lessons. We partnered with Texas A&M. We did a lot of training for our teaching and learning coaches, for our district specialists, and we completely overhauled the middle school ELA curriculum. And we really think that that is what helped to yield those results, plus just general principal buy-in, staff buy-in. Everybody knew it was urgent and really stepped up. So for the opportunities, you heard Ms. Jackson talk about the meets and masters is where we were missing the mark overall. The same holds true for language arts. Our meets and master scores are not where we want them to be. And so we're really excited for our next steps. You know, when we onboarded, especially like those lift lessons, everybody's just learning new curriculum that they're not differentiating necessarily the way you want. And we think that that's going to come this year with our emphasis on GT and advanced academics. It's a huge priority for us. And then with EOC, you know, those EOC scores weren't at all where we wanted. Statewide, we saw a large regression. And it wasn't like it was the ECR. There's not one thing. We just across the board went down when it comes to EOC. And I think it comes back to realizing that the EOC scores, those 9th and 10th grade scores, aren't just 9th and 10th grade scores. They're also 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. The more students who are not reading on grade level at high school, the more students are going to struggle. So in addition to just building capacity in our high school teachers and really making sure that everybody understands the expectations for STAR at high school, it's about addressing those reading gaps in elementary and in middle school, which is why we're moving to structured literacy. And we're also going to be doing a pilot next year called the Amira pilot in 6 to 8, which is about closing gaps in middle school for those readers. So that's really ELA. Does anybody have any questions for me? I'm not allowed. All righty, thank you.
Okay, so I get to talk about our math scores.
Before we move forward, Mr. Sampson, did you have something?
No, and I'm gonna wait.
Okay.
You're waiting for me?
No,
You're
I'm
gonna give
gonna
me
wait. I'm gonna wait till later.
Okay, perfect. So for math, we do have some growth that we need to happen. We did see a little bit of a regression across the board, but we also are seeing that in the state as well. So we do have work to do. I'm excited to come on board to work on that and to make a positive change in the math department. As you can see, we really struggled in the meets and masters, but also approaches. On a good note though, Algebra 1, we do have one positive. Algebra 1 I think is trending above the state in approaches, so that is a positive that we have to go on. Algebra 1 we did see a little bit of a drop, but we are still at where the state is. They did drop as well. So we are going to go to work and we will bring much better results next year. As far as celebrations, we did have growth at the master's level for 3rd through 5th grade math. We went from 10.3% to 11.7%, indicating that students are developing that mathematical understanding, and that's really big. For Algebra 1, although there was a slight dip, like I said, we are still trending above the state in approaches. We're going to really work on those meets and master's levels. And that's, district-wide. We've got to push for that. Opportunities for grades 6 through 8, we did see a drop across the board. We're going to be working on more targeted support, really working on that Tier 1 instruction, and I think Bluebonnet is going to help us with that as well. And in Algebra 1, we did see that decline in meets and masters. We're going to really work on that higher level performance, making sure that our honors courses are at that rigorous level so that we can get that critical thinking skills up so that those kids will perform better. Any questions? I am ready for it.
Making or closing the gap with results are not, in my opinion, where we want to be. We want to be above the state.
Good evening. I'm here. I'm going to talk about our social studies scores with y'all this evening. So looking at this year's 8th grade, in 2024, we were at 41% approaches. We did increase that to 44%, so we are closing that gap with the state. Our meets went from 13% up to 18%, and our masters, we bumped up by 2%. Now, what we're not seeing there is actually where we were in the fall with benchmark data. In the fall, when we gave our kids their benchmarks, we were actually only trending to like 38% approaches, 36% approaches. And so Ms. Martinez brought in a group of us from across the district who were administrators that had taught social studies. And, we kept the teachers in the classroom and we came together and basically were like, what can we do? Let's look at those high value TEKs. Let's really look at the lessons that we have developed. And we were able to not only really focus on what we know that the kids had to have, but it also freed up some time for the teachers to have extra review. Then we were able to roll it out and PD the teachers in what we were looking at. And so we went from 36% up to 44%. Also in that level, the state dropped. And so it looked like we were already, closing a gap, but then it closed even more whenever the state dropped some. So we're really happy. We have plenty of work to do at 8th grade always. But this was a positive for us. We did not see as much positivity as we wanted to at the EOC level. We did see a drop there, 94 down to 91, drop at meets 64.9 to 60.2, and a drop in masters. In terms of what went on there, that is data that I'm looking forward to digging in. And trying to see, what could have happened that caused that drop, because we didn't see really that big of a drop at the state. In terms of celebrations, our huge celebration is standing in the picture in the middle. We're celebrating our National History Fair winner. as a district, and we're celebrating those eighth grade gains. We really are. Eighth grade is an incredibly difficult test. It's at a very high level. Kids really struggle at the reading comprehension of that test and the content, and so to see us gain in every single area, 3 percentage points, meets by 5 points, masters by 2 points, it just shows that we're going in the right direction. Also in that we don't talk about a lot, there was 9 first-year teachers a year ago just completing their second year, and it takes time to become a really good teacher. And so, you know, we're now moving into year 3 with these 8th grade teachers at those levels, so we're really excited about that. Our opportunity at U.S. History, again, performance remains high, but we did see a slight decline with approaches dropping from 94 to 91, meets from 64 to 60, masters from 34 to 31. Again, going to dive in to that data, look at how we've been putting higher order thinking skills, writing, historical evidence, scaffolding. What have we been doing? I've also started conducting multiple PDs. I did my first of 6 over the next 2 weeks, and we're really looking at vertically aligning. So for example, today I met with 6th grade, and as we were looking and letting 6th grade dive into their content, we were constantly looking at what can we vertically align that we know is going to hit them in 8th grade. And as I'm meeting with my 9th grade and my 10th grade teachers over the next week, it's going to be what are we looking at that we know they're going to have to approach or deal with their 11th grade year, and let's help start really getting them prepped up for that across all of social studies. So thank you.
All right, Norma Martinez, and I'm going to be reporting on science. We do have our new member, Emily Olivier, if she wants to stand up and wave. So, like Susan said, brand new team, we're excited. So for 5th and 8th grade science, you'll see that we greatly improved. We went from an approaches of a 55 to a 61, meets from 25 to 28, and then masters from 8 to 8.5. So huge gains from the 5th and the 8th grade. We also want to celebrate, because this is the only content area that had an increase in all tests, and so shout out to science. But we did increase from an 87 to an 88 for approaches in biology, a 51 to a 56, and then a slight drop in the masters from the 14 to a 13, which you'll see on the next slide is our opportunity. So we're going to celebrate that we did improve across all levels in all content areas, so that not content areas in all tests, so 5th, 8th, and biology. And so that just shows, and keep in mind, we had new TEKs, okay? So our teachers were not only learning their curriculum, but they were also teaching it as they were learning it. And so we show that they are doing really well in mastering that content in their classrooms. But we do have an opportunity in biology to pick up that master's score. And something that Sarah mentioned was revamping our advanced academics and making sure that we are challenging our students in the ways that they need to be challenged. Just like with new curriculum, the challenge is to make sure that they understand it. And then the following year, we are really working at differentiating. So making sure that those honors classes and those accelerated classes are meeting the needs of our higher students.
And I can't go forward without saying I really want to give a shout out to Kevin Robleski, because he's led that team in this work. And I'm not blaming Dr. Bollinger at all for stealing him from us, but I do want to make sure I acknowledge him. So with that, CCMR. So
he will get the mic at some point. At some point in the future, he'll have the mic.
Yeah, we need to steal him back, and anybody else that can help contribute to bring these scores.
Well,
up.
I think Emily's going to do a great job, because Kevin
Randy's
has trained
gone
her.
anyway. We'll make those calls without him. You know, I mean, look, hey,
Okay.
we're good.
So one of our celebrations that I
Please
think...
go ahead with the presentation.
I'm trying, sir, trying. I don't want the trophy to keep staying in my office.
Well, we're laughing, but it's a serious topic.
It is.
Trust me,
But that's why I wanted to recognize.
And a lot of conversation about this topic, and you know, we laugh a little bit, but we're serious. And I'm glad to see we got all these good people here now, or more changes, you know, to try to plus the Blue Bonnet curriculum, you know, I think all that's going to help.
Well, we're seeing great gains, and so we're excited, that momentum, we just got to keep it going.
Yeah.
One of the celebrations that everybody in here knows is that we perform above the state and the national average when it comes to what we do on college and career readiness. So I think it's something we should really celebrate. And so on our district CCMR, we stayed the same at a 94, but the state's average is a 76. Our goal, and it's in the strategic plan that will be presented to you next one, is that I want 100%. Every one of our kids should walk out of here CCMR. They have credentials, or they have whatever it is between AP, dual credit, industry certification, whatever that is. We have an obligation to make sure they enter the workforce ready to go. So I'm very excited and proud of 94%, but I think that we can hit 100%. That's my goal. So we are way above the state. So we don't know how the state did this year because it's not available until August. So that's why you have that placeholder. The district graduation rate, and all of what you see is going to be in your domain 3 for sure. And then CCMR is also in domain 1. But your district graduation rate, we went from 94.9% to 96.1%. So we made good gains in our graduation rate. Very excited about that. We do not have the state's graduation rate yet, but we were above them last year from 92, and we were at 94. So I'm hoping to see that we're way above them again.
At least that we maintain 94.
Yes. Well, I'll take my little bump there from 94 to 96. Yes. But on TELPAS, we are waiting for those results, and we know that is part of domain 3, and that should be released on July 24th. So one of the things that Dr. O'Brien, Executive Council, thought that y'all might really want to know or see is where we are compared to the state and our special population students. And so what we've done is laid out 2021 all the way to 23-24. That's all we have so far. And the state was at 21% for bilingual and went to 24%. We are still under the state, but if you've noticed there, we're making a faster gain going from 17.9 to 23.9. So even though we are a little below them, we're growing at a much faster rate. District SPED versus state SPED, we started off, or the state started off at 11%, and over the years they went to 13. We started off at 11% and went to almost 16%. So our SPED numbers have increased drastically at a much higher rate. Dyslexia has gone from the state. We were about the same. We were 4.9. They were at 4.5. And we are now still above them at 6.6 versus 6.0. The District 504 numbers you can see has dropped. But why would that have dropped? Because if you are identified as dyslexia, you now are not in 504. You are in our SPED numbers. So you see the SPED numbers going up faster. So if you are identified with the only disability you have is not really a disability, it's dyslexia, you were served under the 504 umbrella. But now we have to, by law, put them under special education. Does that make sense? And then our gifted and talented is where I see a real concern because we dropped where the state made a small gain. So we have a group working on that as well because we know that's where our meets and our masters are. So we've got to revamp what's going on in our GT program. And then the district uncertified teachers, and I know Dr. Bollinger's behind me if you have any questions, they didn't require us to have that data, to my understanding, in the past years, but we do know where we are now. We're at 9.75, and this is a number where I believe it's important that we are behind the state at 11.8 because we want to be lower. Dr. Bollinger, anything you want to add on that?
No, they just, on the TA reports, they didn't report out specific district data until this past year, but they have state data for the last 5 years. So we're neck and neck with the state, but a little bit below, which is where we want to be. We want more certified teachers, less uncertified.
And so as we kind of wrap up, we wanted to kind of recap the STAR changes since 22-23. Again, the whole test was redesigned. There was the integration of the extended constructed responses and the short constructed responses, which just means writing across all contents. There was increased CCMR cut points. They introduced the AI-generated scoring, and then the new cut points with the new scale scores, and then also just the increased use of the machine scoring.
So our last slide, and y'all have any questions, is that one of the tasks that y'all gave the CNI team was that we needed to close those gaps to the state, and we have really worked hard to do that, and we will continue to work hard to do that. And I agree with you, Mr. Renteria, we want to be better than the state. We want to be the best in the state. So that's our goal, and I believe we're on the right road, and I believe we have a great team to get us there. So are there any questions from y'all?
Go ahead, Ms. Sampson. I'll go. I want to compliment you all on the things that you had, especially when you talked about targeted support and about positive learning environment. That's one of the things that was constantly mentioned throughout this report. So I want to say well done. And one of the things that Mrs. Sampson asked me earlier, and I didn't have an answer, but you had brought it up a little bit about analyzing data to identify areas of weaknesses. Who does that? Is it done you guys, or the state does it, or we do our own?
We do our own. And so we have a team. We'll come together. James does a good job of bringing us the data. We sit down as a team, and we've already done that and said, okay, so they have a meeting with me on July 31st to talk about, okay, now you've got your scores. You take your team, you analyze that data. We come back and you present to the whole team so that we can also say, what about this? And why did you do this? So everything's based on data. And so that'll be the day on the 31st when they have to come back and present to the whole group, because give them time to look at their data, and then we need to know exactly what you think. So what Amy talked to you about is exactly what we're talking about. One of the things that when you look at other districts and say, how are y'all doing better on 8th grade? Well, that's because we don't wait till 8th grade to teach 8th grade TEKS. We have to push some of those TEKS down to 6th grade, some down to 7th grade, even though 6th grade's like cultures, world cultures, and 7th grade's Texas history, and then you got US. So in isolation, you say, well, I can't do this, but there's a lot of things that you can cross. So that's been her task that she's working with her team on, to say, how can we get that so that we're not waiting until the 8th grade to try to hit all of those TEKS. So I hope that answered your question.
It did, and thanks. We just didn't know who did the analyzing of the data that comes about, especially when second part of that is like extra support for students that who needs the most help. So how do you, when we figuring this out, and that's just, you may have told us this, but I haven't have it in my memory bank. So we know students are struggling, and do you look at that from their test scores or from what they have in classes? How do you come and try to have a plan with them? Even they're not in a special program, not in 504 dyslexia or anything, just a regular student.
So those would be our tier 2 supports. And one of the things that you heard Sarah talk about is trying to streamline and pilot a mirror, which is like a personal AI tutor. And then after a while, they'll have I think Mr. Clem, you went and saw one of the programs that we were doing. So using those tutors, and that was a real person that we used, and we saw great gains. But what we do we use our PLC, and those PLC, the teachers look at that, and there's an administrator in there, and we also have our TLCs in there, and they look at the data and they determine, hey, what's the TEK that we scored the lowest on this test? How did we do that? So we look at formative assessments, we look at common unit assessments, and we are doing common formative assessments. So if it's a 3rd grade team, we're all teaching math, everybody's going to give the same exit ticket. So it may be one question over that concept, and then we all come together and say, well, I had 90% of my kids got it right, and James may have 40% pass. So we got to figure out what happened in this classroom. And then how do we support that? So moving to a concept of my students, his students, it's our students. So maybe I did the best. So our intervention time, I'm going to take the students that didn't do that well on this TEK, and then he's going to take the kids that did really better on a TEK that maybe I didn't support as well.
That makes sense.
Does that answer your question?
I hope that goes into practice, because that makes a lot of sense. So I hope we're implementing that and really practicing
Well, we started using that across the district this year. Some grades in places, campuses are better and embrace that.
and we saw the gains there.
How do we get our teachers to show up if they're going to do like extra tutoring or things like that for students who, as you have identified, that may not be meeting those and needing to raise that level? How do you make that happen for the teachers to show up for extra support of those kids?
Well, the first thing we have to do is get the PD into the teachers because they may not know enough to help support those tier 2. So what we did was, I have to give a shout out to Exxon because they donated a ton, I want to say $10,000 worth of gift cards and things, incentives to get teachers here. And then also we were able to use some of our federal funds to pay for after school training for Bluebonnet. And so getting those teachers where they're equipped, that's the first thing. And then really knowing that we can't rely on parents being able to transport their students and having transportation with the cost that we're having now. We have to build in time into the day to hit those interventions. And so that's really what we're doing. So we're using a lot of those TLCs to push in and do small group interventions, pullouts, and then we do, if any extra funds are there, we use that to hire retired teachers that will come in and help tutor our kids, especially in early literacy.
Thanks. That's what I just didn't know some of the things, so thanks.
You're welcome.
Explained it all. Thanks.
Some of the things she brought up was some of the things I was going to say, but, you know, I'm old school. I look at stuff like football. You know, if we look at what we're doing and we have to push a little bit further to get beyond 12% and we behind the state by 3%, are we trying to push or are we just accepting? Everything I've seen is that we did a little bit better than we did then, or we did a little bit better than the state. You know, the mindset that I'm feeling is that it's not that we did a little bit better, that we gonna do better in order to be the best in the state. So that part, are we preaching it? Don't coin the phrase. Are we pushing it towards our teachers and administrators and everything that we are going to be the best, not that, well, we made 1% gain. That's not good enough. It's got to be better, and we have to, our mindset 99% of the time has to be that we need to push a little bit harder to be able to make sure that we are the best. You know, you can't say, well, we made it. You know, it's like giving a flag out to somebody who's just competed. You know, we just got to be able to say, you know, we got to push a little bit harder here. We got to do better. You know, as my two members to the right of me have said, we have to do better. And if we don't insist that and push that to our teachers, administrators, librarians, whatever, then we're always going to be subpar. And I don't think we should look at our district as subpar. I don't want us measuring ourselves towards other districts because, well, we're a little bit ahead of them. No, we want to be ahead of everybody in the state. And if we can't do that, then we have the wrong people.
I agree. If we have already proven that we can be leaps and bounds ahead of everybody around us when it comes to getting our kids college ready and getting them SAT ready, we've already proved that. Those are the same kids. So they all have heard me say, this is my coin, I'm going to go football. We've got to quit playing defense and we have to play offense.
Right.
So
And
I agree with you.
in my 16 years, I went to a meeting that a kid stood up, and I hope we don't have this anymore, and said he went through the program and he said he could not read. And he graduated not being able to read. That's unacceptable. So the things that we're doing now, we should be able to say,
how many of these kids are coming out of here that are able to, number one, if you can read, you can learn. And so I'm just looking for a standard that we're not saying, well, we've done better than we do last year. No, we could kick the ball out the park. You know, we need to start thinking that mindset.
I agree with you.
And that's all I want to say. Ms. Tim said a lot of questions I had to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. I just want to touch a little bit on math. We have a new fresh look in math now, and you talked about the things that we're going to do, kind of high level, where we're going to go. Kind of touch on that a little bit. You're coming into this position new. What are some new things we're going to do to move us in the right direction? And this applies to all the other subjects as well, but let's start with math. If we do the same thing over and over again and don't get different results, then we have to change it up. What are some ideas at the board level, not too deep into detail, but kind of give us the direction that you're going to take math, and then if y'all could touch on in the other subjects as well.
So there's a big thing that we did. We had a group that met and we looked at the elementary instructional minutes, and we looked at how we can revamp those to allow more intervention time, particularly for math, because we had one block that everybody had to share. Well, now we have ELA has their own intervention time built into their block, and now math has an intervention time built into theirs. So the kids that may not get it the first time, we have a second chance to go back and spend time specifically in math. So I think that's a huge move this year that's going to make an impact in math specifically, because we're not competing for time. Okay, so I think that's a big thing. I think the Bluebonnet curriculum is also going to make a big impact in math. It's more consistent. It delivers pretty good instruction that we're going to all be on the same page. It's going to look the same in every classroom, and I think that's going to also make a huge difference. So those are two real quick things that I can tell you that we're looking at to make sure that there's consistent instruction going on across every campus in every classroom.
Thank you. Do y'all want to touch on other subjects as well?
So something I wanted to mention that we are rolling out, that we piloted this last year, that we saw great success was with the student trackers. And so that's something that we tried in a couple of campuses. Kevin Foxworth and I would visit different campuses and kind of grab ideas from our principals, and something that we saw wonderfully implemented at Stewart was students tracking. Ms. Barat Timms asked, how are the teachers doing it? Well, we want it to be also important for teachers to know, but most importantly for those students to take on that ownership of their own learning. And so we piloted some student trackers throughout the district, and this year we're rolling it out. So each of our content areas, our specialists are creating trackers for each of the CUAs that the students are going to take. And then the students are going to be reflecting on previous STAR data, but then also on the current data that they're receiving. And we want them to kind of own, hey, I didn't do well on this TEAC, what could I do? And we're continuing our partnership with Progress Learning, and then also implementing Amira for that Tier 2 intervention. So making sure that not only do the teachers know what the students need, but that the students know as well. And you're thinking, well, what about elementary? It was also piloted in elementary. My daughter would come home, she's a 4th grader this year, she would come home and say, hey, we took the CUA and I need to work on this TEAC. And at home, she was logging into the system and practicing that TEAC so that she could improve her score for the next year. Because we piloted it and found great success in a couple of our campuses, we decided as a team that we were going to go ahead and implement that in full force throughout the district, all levels, elementary and secondary. So that's another big change that we're implementing this year.
Thank you.
In social studies, the big focus really is, for so long, there's 2 tests, right? So they have 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, but they only have 2 tests. And, you know, if you go back and you look at the DeFore PLC model, one of the things whenever I was in 11th grade and was teaching 11th grade, we had to get over the idea of my kids, Right, it's exactly what she was saying. You know, we had to get to, this is our kids, and we share this. And so when we were in PLC and we were digging into the data, or we were digging into the lessons and teaching, you know, or thinking, how are we going to teach this concept to the best to our kids, we were able to break down that idea of it being, you know, my kids. Now what I'm going to be working with is our levels vertically to break down that concept of, like, I'm not a tested teacher, but you are, your kid just won't take it for 2 years. And so again, by working with the teachers to look at every single way they can support those 2 U.S. histories, because even if we're in Texas history, you are learning things that are applicable to the larger country as a whole. And so even if today was working with 6th grade teachers, it was, you know, the kids aren't going to take the test for 2 years, but we need to get them writing. We need to get them looking at stimuli. We need more than we have in the past. And also, as you're teaching concepts, the very first unit deals with forms of government. Let's go ahead and start hitting some of that U.S. history content there. And so really the focus is just going to be more vertical alignment to really support those 2 grade levels at this point in social studies.
And then for language arts, you heard Amy talking about this idea that, like, just because you're not a tested content area or tested grade doesn't mean that your teaching doesn't matter, right? So what she's getting at there is a shift in culture, a shift in philosophy. Like, what do we believe our purpose is here? And culture and purpose and philosophy are hard things to turn around. They're not like a jet ski. They don't move quickly. They're sort of like a cruise ship, and it takes a bit for them to come around. But we've been working hard at that for all of last year, and really kind of setting the stage for us to have a culture shift when it comes to literacy in Goose Creek. And now you're going to see that ship's coming around. And balanced literacy is going away, and we're moving to structured literacy. We're going to be progress monitoring intensely in collaboration with the TXRL Foundation, because we have that grant, in collaboration with Region 4, because we also have the LASSO grant. We're going to be looking for evidence of high quality instruction and the implementation of our high quality instructional materials. So I think that's going to be something that's really huge. And I think it's important too that we do pause and we talk about the why behind that, because there's so many research studies out there, and there's the House Bill 1605 is driven by teacher input, but also by research. And you have these large scale bodies of individuals pushing into classrooms and monitoring what is the teaching looking like in there. And in approximately 70% of classrooms across the nation, and yes, also in Texas numbers were slightly higher, you are seeing teachers engage students with curricular materials that are not on grade level. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But what you end up with is you end up with this philosophy of, I am teaching the students where the students are struggling, instead of this philosophy, this culture of, no, I'm teaching where the expectation should be at grade level. And when you think about students on like a string, and you put every student on a string from the highest performing to the lowest performing student, when you push from the bottom, what happens? Well, only the bottom of that string moves. But when you pull from the top, we all move up. And that's the philosophy of HQIMs. And I think that's the philosophy that we're trying to kind of replicate here in Goose Creek. It's this idea of, like, no, all kids can. We believe all kids can. And we're going to put PDs in place. We're going to put grant-supported resources in place. We're going to put coaching staff in place. We're going to empower your principals to know how to support you so that we can move toward that philosophy. And it's not just like ideas, it's actual action like you were talking about. So I hope that helps answer that question.
It did. All 4 responses were very helpful, and I appreciate that. It's going to be a year of high pressure and high expectations, and we look forward to seeing what you can do. Any further questions from the board?
No, they're doing a good job. I'm happy with the answers they gave.
I had a comment. I want to commend you as a group presenting us tonight. I asked that we not come up here and present with excuses. I appreciate, James, you started off with the cut scores being changed, and we've learned that the commissioner does have autonomous control to change things as he wishes to. And that does impact not just Goose Creek, but all school districts in the state of Texas. So I appreciate us not coming up here and presenting the excuses. But I think the other thing that was helpful for the board tonight was that we're looking at longitudinal data. You're not just showing the snapshot of what happened last year, but what's happened over the last couple of years. And it's not lost on them either. What's happened in Goose Creek over the last 6 years, our funding was frozen, and that's different presentations from Ms. Clark, and then our personnel shifts that have happened in Goose Creek, different presentation from Dr. Bollinger. But we've gone, and the whole state's been dealing with that. So there's no excuses built into any of this, but there are some things that CNI, you could have said this and you could have said that. You know, we, just before COVID hit, we had really focused on having more instructional time with children, and specifically the junior high campuses all had block scheduling. So they had twice as much ELA time, twice as much math time. And as a matter of the budget reductions over the last few years, we've limited that back. So we've actually cut instructional time half for those subject matters. And you could have said that, but I appreciate the fact that we're not talking about what's happened to us as victims, but we're talking about this is the plan, this is what we're going to do moving forward, regardless of cut scores or anything else. I know that everyone's paying attention to the special session that's coming up where the STAR test could go away altogether and we won't have these examples to even give anymore. But the truth of the matter is we're always going to have assessment. So we'll always have a way to measure, to provide our parents is the main thing, our parents an understanding of where we're at and how we're doing and what we're doing to improve upon what we do. The other shift has been, before COVID, about 20% of our teachers fell into the 0 to 5 year category. So, and newbies, if you will, up to 5 years, 20%. We're now sitting at almost half of our teachers fall into that category. And it's many things that have happened over the last 5 or 6 years, and I appreciate y'all keeping it streamlined to what are we going to do about where we're at today. But I also feel like it's fair to you, for the audience and for our board members, to recognize that we've been going through a very tumultuous time and you have navigated it at the best of your abilities. And I just wanted to commend you on the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. I echo what Dr. O'Brien has said. We've had quite a few conversations, and the time of excuses is expired, and now it's let's buckle down. We know what we have, and let's grow giants. I really appreciate what you said about not pushing from the bottom, but you pull up to the top. Every child is capable of meeting a higher standard, and if we keep that standard low, they'll never meet a higher standard. So
Amen.
I commend you on that. I hope we continue, and I hope that just you knock it out of the park. But this board is very supportive of what you do, and for me, second to safety and security, all eyes are on y'all. Not only this board, but our entire community is counting on y'all to really bring us up to where we need to be. So thank you for that. Any further questions from the board?
Well, just a shout out to the teachers in that regard, because we celebrate tonight sustaining. And that's something to celebrate under the conditions they've been in. So it's not our goal, it's not our end result of what we're achieving, but in the midst of seeing the state scores go decline even more than what we have is a testament to that our teachers are working hard to meet the conditions in which they live. And there's been paradigm shift from virtual learning and everything else, but teachers, hang in there. Our shout out to you is thank you for what you've done and what you're continuing to do. And yes, the bar has been set high and we're going to reach it.
Thank you.
Susan, he didn't mention you, but you did a good job too.
All right, our next presentation, Mr. President, will be the legislative update. Thank goodness it is not the entire legislative update, but just a snippet thereof. Ms. Smith, I think you have some things that are pertinent to our student code of conduct and things of that nature you want to present to the board tonight, right?
Thank you. And can I add before you get started, if any questions go out to the panel behind you, please come up and speak into a microphone if you reach out, or if any questions go out there. We want to capture all that audio.
All right. So I believe Ms. Garcia passed out a little stapled packet at our law conference that was held in the middle of June that was sent. This was in the back of it. It's an overview of what TASB will be updating. So I figured it was a nice overview if you want some extra reading. It has everything, obviously, from the finance, which is not my world, all the way to the students. So page 156 is where I'm going to be on the bottom. It'll be the student issues, and we're going to focus on those. So the first one is House Bill 6. That was the student discipline. The first thing it did was prohibit DOI exemptions from Chapter 37, which is what we do our discipline under. It requires the student code of conduct to allow DAP as an option for first-time use of possessions of vapes. However, if we do not send them to DAEP, they're going to require us to send them to ISS for 10 days. So as you'll see at the end, I'll be sending the code of conduct to y'all at the end of the month for review for the passing at the August 4th board meeting. And so we will be recommending that we remain it to be a mandatory DAEP.
And the primary reason for that is because we've had a curb in violations, is that right?
Yes, it has gone down. And I think that message that it sends is more relevant than just saying, oh, you can go to ISS. So I want to stick to what we've done for the last 2 years.
How long do they go to DAP when they get a
It depends.
violation?
If it's a e-cigarette, it's 15 days for the first offense. Second offense is 30 days. And then the third offense is 45. If it's THC, it's going to be 30, 45, and then high point. However, as it was alluded earlier, we are going to special session starting Monday, and Senate Bill 3 is back on the table for THC. So depending on what he does, could change.
That's a big problem.
Well, just to be clear, though, I think that the edits looking for in that bill is simply to exempt 21 and over. So the impact on our students may not change at all, but there is some consideration being given to THC used for veterans and things of that nature. I think that's the motivation behind that being called back to session, although you're right, anytime they're in special session, anything is up for grabs for change. But they did indicate that it's for 21 and up edits to that bill.
Hopefully they'll stick to that. It requires our commissioner to create a model return to class following teacher removal, so the Chapter 37 teacher removal. So we will be waiting on the commissioner to create this model for the return to class. It also states that ISS is unlimited now. However, there will be a check-in every 10 days. We're going to be evaluating that a little closely. We're not going to be pushing for those unlimited days.
Right.
So if they're not in class, it's a lot harder to learn. Permits OSS for students in pre-K, kinder, first, and second for certain conduct, so they can be sent to out-of-school suspension. However, the two reasons are conduct that threatens the immediate health and safety of other students in the classroom, or documented conduct that results in repeated or significant disruption to the classroom. So there'll be some conversations before we send the little ones home, depending on what the nature is. It also allows a parent to request ISS instead of OSS if unable to supervise the student. However, that request must be done in writing, and we will be requiring the documentation by the parent to support that reason. In other words, their job, there has to be a reason. It also states that we will maintain that so that they have to produce that anytime they're going to request the ISS over out of school suspension. All right, the wonderful House Bill 1481, cell phone policy. As it states, we have to, as a board, which will be coming at the August 4th board meeting to you, adopt, implement, and ensure that the district or school complies with a written policy that prohibits a student from using a personal communication device. That means telephone, cell phone, that includes smartphones and flip phones. Tablets, that would be personal tablets, iPads, their own laptops, smartwatches, radio devices, paging devices, or any other electronic device capable of telecommunications or digital communications while on school property during the school day. It establishes that we must have disciplinary measures to be imposed for violation of that, and may provide for confiscation of the personal communication device. So the choices would be either you prohibit the student from bringing a personal communication device on the property at all, or we designate a method for the storage of a student's personal communication device while the student is on school property during the school day. So there will be recommendation provided to you guys. We are not planning on recommending prohibiting it. The recommendation will be that they store it in their backpack. We're not looking at purchasing the pouches, which some districts have. If you've done a cost analysis, I know we're in a budget deficit, and I don't believe you have $500,000 to supply for the district, which is what it would cost. So the recommendation will be that they'll store them in their backpacks during the school day.
You think that's going to be possible? Really?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think you're not thinking straight here, in my opinion. Kids, anybody, adults, they're not going to stay away from that phone if they got it right there.
Well, there will be consequences, as it states. The recommendation tentatively right now is going to be the first offense would be it's going to be taken up. The parent has to come pick it up, and we're going to look at 1 day of ISS. The second offense, we'll double it, make it 2. Parent still has to pick it up. Recommendation 3 days, parent pick it up. And the fourth offense and on will be a DAEP placement of 15 days, which comparing to other districts around, that's along the lines. Some have done worse as far as consequences. Some have done less. Some are charging money when you take them up. So it varies across the state depending on where you look on social media right now. Just about everybody's posted their own version, I believe.
Yeah. I think the hard part is going to be the smartwatches, because I mean, we can all recognize an Apple Watch, but there are other smartwatches out there that are a little bit harder to recognize.
Yes.
And I mean, they can text and everything on their watches too. So I feel like that's going to be the hardest part.
Some of the schools in our district, some have kind of implemented some things their own. So I think we were moving toward that direction. So yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, but we've had that policy before. Some of the things that you were saying before, it got just so open that you can bring in cell phones. So I think moving back to that is going to be hard, but we can do it.
Well, and no different.
I like what you said of keeping it, having the policy and what you stated. I think that's
no different than the vapes. 2 years ago, when that legislative passed that, we knew it was going to be difficult. 2 years later, the numbers have gone down. And so I think at first it is going to be a challenge, and we know that's going to be a challenge. I actually had a meeting with principals and assistant principals of a committee today, and we discussed that. But there will be consistency across the board. This will be communicated out once the board approves it on August the 4th. Communication will go out, and at that point, we will move forward, and there will be slides created for class meetings and discussions on each campus, but they will be consistent. All of those will come from my office. So that
I'm going to make a projection. You'll be back to prohibit all students from bringing phones. I'm telling you. Just like you said, it ain't just the phones. It's the watches. It's
Well, the other thing is the earbuds in their ears. That will no longer be permitted because they're connected to your phone, and your phone can't be in your possession or in an on position. So we won't be seeing earbuds any longer.
Well, and I think the other big part, like you said, it's going to just be consistency. Just having all the administrators. I mean, if you see, you've got to pick it up.
And teachers.
Yes.
Staff they have to do the same. So let me ask you a question. This one way out in left field. If I'm a student at a football game and you saying I can't have communication on school property.
It's only during this instructional day. It's only during the instructional day.
What if you got band practices on a school day?
That's after school.
But you still on school property.
But the law states on school property during the school day. Instructional day.
Okay.
So for our tier 1 schools, that's going to be 7 to 2:50.
So let me ask you this other question. I'm Joe Blow, and I got a phone, but I walk out on the sidewalk in front of the school. Now that's Harris County property. they right away. That's not on the school property, but I'm talking on my phone. So how is that gonna be handled?
Yeah, at that
That's
point,
what I'm saying.
at that point, you're truant.
That-
So we're going to take a different
That's what-
approach to
I'm just-
discipline on that one.
I'm just,
But
you
he
know,
does got a point, because people are, they're gonna try it.
Yeah,
They're gonna
I mean-
try anything. That was my whole point. They're
I
gonna-
actually read this bill, and that's defined in there, and this bill states that we have to adopt a policy during the school day instruction period on school grounds. So it's up to us to create that or adopt that policy that's going to be presented to us. It's going to be a culture change.
Yeah.
And it takes time to create a culture change.
So when
And
school's out-
5.5 million students across Texas are going to have the same issue.
right.
You're correct.
So
when school's out,
You're good to go.
you're good to go.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
But you know it's gonna be tested. I mean,
Oh, no, we know.
You know, they smarter than we are. We old, they young, so they gonna figure out something, some
So
way.
to clarify, that does not, the device is not one that we provide. So our school issued iPads are not part of this bill. So anything, as long as the student takes our iPad, that will not be.
Let me ask you this old question. If I got an iPad like you have, and I can get, you know, the visual part and listen to it, and I'm on campus, does that violate the policy? But it's the school's issue iPad.
If it's for instructional purposes, I know, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe some of the Bluebonnet has some listening pieces, I've been told. So as long as it's an instructional piece in the classroom, then that obviously will be allowed.
Okay, but if, once again, I go outside and I'm just standing around, but I got my iPad and it's a school issue, but can I still, you know, communicate with someone who calls me?
Mr. Flood can answer that question if he'll come up.
Yeah.
There's ability to lock things down, and I think he has pretty good guardrails on him now.
We've already had that discussion
Yeah,
too.
okay.
We've had that discussion.
So the district iPads that we issue are locked down where they can only load the apps that we control them to utilize, so they can't load iMessenger and stuff like that to communicate. So some of the apps, you know, early on when we first did it, the kids did have the ability to load their own apps, and we ran through those issues, but lately they cannot. They can't. Without trying to get around our systems, they should not be able to load
I'm
their
just
own
asking
apps.
every kid, one of them nerds that know how to do it.
Yeah, I understand.
You know.
I look to find them so I can hire them. So, you know, that's, they're smarter than me. I get
I
that.
know. Hey, look, they can
But
do
yeah.
just about anything.
So for 99% of the students, they should not be able to get around the system.
Yeah. I was just curious. I mean, they have ways of doing it, you know.
I have another question if Mr. Sampson's finished. Are you finished?
Yeah.
You still going? Okay. So I totally understand this law and support it, but I'm not sure that they thought about all of it. But CNI, I don't know if you all have thought about it, but like I know for us, our kids had problems getting on to AP Classroom when they couldn't get their cell phones because they aren't able to receive emails from outside of the district. And then also when dual credit students were trying to take exams and having to get codes. So have you worked through all of that?
Yes. We're
working on that because Lamar Institute already
Yeah.
sending us information about that.
Yeah, we're working on that. We've already had communications
Okay.
with some of the colleges on to trying to figure out what we need to do to make that work.
Duo, where they have to send that duo code.
Yes.
And so we're working with our attorney because what we're trying to see is if he can set it up where they could send that duo to like an email address and it'd be their student email address, or if it's could be sent to even a number we assign to them, like a phone number we assign to that iPad. But he's working on that, I think.
So yeah, there's some concerns that the legislation did not think
Yeah.
all the way through
Yeah.
on some of this stuff that we need to
Yeah.
now work out, right?
Because I know that like we had issues with kids, like they would whitelist a email, but then College Board or whatever would send it from a different email address. So then we didn't know we were missing emails because that email address wasn't whitelisted.
Right. We're definitely going to run through some issues where stuff we don't know, and we're going to have to work through that to figure out.
Well, and College Board and stuff will have to work through those issues also.
And that was brought up. In fact, when we got the email, I immediately called the attorney, and because I was going through some of this legislation to make sure I understood, and Dr. Bryan had some questions, so I was checking everything, and I brought it up. I said, hey, we just got this email from Lamar, and she was like, well, you're the first district that's called us about that one. So she goes, obviously, they didn't think about everything. Big surprise.
And you also have to understand that we are multiple higher ed institutions working with them. And so, you know, Lamar Institute has the Duo, where San Jacinto has something else, HCC has something else, Lee has something else. So we've got to work through several issues.
But they are aware, because the gentleman that emailed specifically said, you know, based on House bill that passed, you know, how do y'all plan on handling it? So I know they're aware and going to try their best to work with each district. So there are a couple of reasons why a student will be allowed to use that device if it's necessary to implement their IEP for a special education student or a plan created under 504, or a student that is documented need-based from a directive from a qualified physician. I used a diabetic student with the Dexcom, so obviously they would need to, you know, have their phone. Those lists of students will be given to the campus. The campus will communicate to those teachers specifically, which they would anyway, that these students would be allowed to make sure that they're for their health or other reasons. So as I stated, the student code of conduct is going to come to you on the August 4th board meeting. My plan is to have it for you on the 28th though, so a week before, so that y'all can read through it, find any errors, or if I need to make any corrections or concerns. I do have a webinar on Wednesday with TASB. Ms. Garcia had sent me that. So we have one for the student handbook, also one for the code of conduct. So I'll be on those two webinars, Wednesday and Thursday, to hopefully get guidance. They're usually pretty good about helping write how this should be worded there. From what I understand, I don't believe policy is actually going to be out till around October as far as actual. So.
I think denying them the phone is going to make our scores go up by itself. Yeah. No distractions, you know.
We're hoping some discipline maybe go down because of this as well.
That's going to come too, but yes. I'm just saying.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Questions?
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. President, we have a presentation of we entered into an agreement for energy efficiency a few years ago, and we have our annual update by ABM. We'll invite them to come up with Dr. Price. I think we have Tim and Mr. Rasmussen, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Or Dr. Price, I'll put you in charge, sir.
All right, thank you, sir.
I'll stop talking.
Good evening, President Capizzi, Superintendent O'Brien, and board members. Tonight we have our ABM annual report. This is for year 3 with our report. We're going to have GCC CISD Goose Creek Director of Maintenance, Michael Rasmussen, going to take over the presentation. He has ABM M&V Manager Brian Walker and ABM Tim Davis, Regional Director, with him tonight.
Good evening and thank you. Yes, we're here to report on the ABM project. It was a $45 million ESCO project that kicked off in 2019. It was originally slated for a year and a half, right in the middle of the pandemic, and we had a few issues through that, but we were able to complete it in 2022. And now we're here to report on the verification of the 3-year prove-out, basically, that we're saving helping to save the district. Ultimately, $30 million, but $2 million a year, and here's our report.
Good evening. Brian Walker, Measurement Verification Manager. I sat before you last year as well, and I'm here to present the year 3 results for the Goose Creek report. And so I'll just briefly explain the measurement and verification methodology that we use, along with our activities and observations. So again, as was mentioned, we signed the contract back in 2019. We're currently in year 3. We have a total savings projection of 2.1 million. 1.1 million of that is energy related. The other is nearly 1 million is related to other operational savings. And I'm happy to report that once again, we have exceeded the guarantee. We're just over 36,000 above that $1.1 million target. And through year 3, including the installation period, we've saved 1.6 million in energy savings to date. In terms of our ECMs, once again, nearly half is lighting, and then a number of other things from water conservation to put in turf fields, and a number of other ECMs that you can see here. The only observations here that we've observed, we continue to work on the CHC system associated with the cooling towers, and we are endeavoring to do our best to get that to a point where it can maximize the savings associated with it. And then the power factor correction over at Lee Memorial and Sterling High School, at least in year 3, that power factor was below 0.95. I believe we have corrected that issue going into year 4, so we'll see a modest increase in savings when I come back for the year 4 report. And then finally, regarding our sustainability slide that I always show you here, this is where we've saved, converting all these savings into various metrics here. But going back to the M&V methodology really quickly, we did a lot of measurement before and after we did the install back before year 1. So a great deal of that is locked in. We still measure we still look at the utility bills just to make sure we are maintaining on that end and problems are not cropping up there. So that's my report. Are there any questions?
No questions?
When you talk about greenhouse gas emissions from 1,464 gasoline-powered passenger vehicles driven in 1 year, is that a changeover to more of a more energy efficient vehicle? I'm kind of confused on that one.
No, sir. It's just, as you can see with these various bullet points, if you wanted to put it in terms of how much emissions from the tailpipe you're saving by doing the project, that's all. And you can find all this information at the website at the very bottom in the small lettering.
Okay, the same with the CO2 emission?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is what we saved or what we used?
Yes, it is what we've saved when relating to tons of CO2 that would have been emitted had we not done the project, et cetera.
Oh, okay.
That's an illustration of what our savings are.
I was trying to get that point, you know.
If we were to look at it from those different perspectives, it's an illustration of the savings.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. Hearing no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to action items. Dr. O'Brien, consideration of consent agenda.
Yes, sir. The action items for this evening under consent is 7A. 1, second option to extend the RFP student athletic insurance. Number 2, pregnancy-related services on campus compensatory education home instruction waiver. Number 3, proposed modified schedule state assessment testing days waiver for 25-26, 26-27, 27-28 school years. Number 4, proposed 25-26 staff development minutes waiver for the 25-26 school year. Number 5, application for an optional flexible school day program for the Peter E. Highlands Center. Number 6, TASB Board of Directors candidates, Region 4, positions C, E, and F endorsements. Number 7, superintendent expenditures. And number 8, tax refunds. Administration recommends the approval of the consent agenda item as presented, but we're happy to entertain any questions you may have, and we'll bring up the person in charge of that question.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. Are there any items that any board member would like to pull for discussion or separate consideration? Hearing none, what is the pleasure of the board on consent agenda?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Ms. Brought-Timms.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Sampson to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by a show of hands. We have 6 for, 0 against, motion carries. And that concludes action items. We'll move on to 7B, which is future board agenda items. Are there any items a board member would like to add onto the agenda?
Just one thing that administration brings, and that was the consideration that we've had the last few board meetings of the naming of facilities, and it sort of has escalated throughout the first consideration until the most recent board meeting to encompass more buildings. So the proposal of administration was to host a workshop where that is the only thing on the agenda, and therefore decisions could be made at the workshop, but or be recommended at the workshop and considered, and that gives everyone on the board a voice to do that. So the request of administration is just to identify a time frame in which the board would like to host a workshop over the next month, 2 months. We do have Giant Con coming up, back to school, but administration is here to serve you at whatever your pleasure may be for hosting that workshop style format.
Any comments or discussion on that?
I missed it.
I don't have any preference on.
Is this about future board agenda items? Because I missed it.
It would be a workshop to go over the naming that has been prevalent in our board meetings the last several times. We've put it on hold a few times because we really want to take an in-depth look at it.
Okay.
So what Dr. O'Brien and administration have recommended and we discussed is maybe doing it in a workshop format, which would be open to the public and it'd be the only thing on the agenda for us to discuss. Or do we want to pause for a little bit longer and let's look at it individually and come back to the table at a future date?
I really, in my honest opinion, we had moved with this and moved forward with it back last year. And I know that we are looking at what the committee has said, and that was at a time when the committee had came forth of making a statement for renaming something else. But when we're looking at this and moving forward, I myself have had time to review everything. I know other members wanted more time, but we can look at it, set it up for a future date as we move forward. But I think we need to move forward at some point because that was a decision, a policy decision that, and what do we, the board does, we do policy. So that's my thoughts on it.
I think we should just have a special meeting, like he said, and just finally come down to a decision on what we want to do, because the next board meeting is August 4th. And if we keep putting it off, it'll be football season by then, so, my vote is to be, if we want to do this, let's go on and do it and not be waiting all this time.
In a workshop format?
Yeah, if we want to do a workshop, that's fine.
Am I seeing nods for a workshop? And let's just.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to set that date today, or do you want us to reach out and propose different dates?
Yeah.
Okay. We do have a lot coming up.
Ms. Garcia will reach out to all the board.
Yeah.
For a one-item workshop.
Yeah, not next week.
Thank you. Are there any other board agenda items that we'd like to see on the board agenda?
Yeah, I'd like a report on the expenditures at Lamar Elementary that are taking place or that have taken place.
Along with that, Dr. O'Brien, if we could just get an update on the construction and progress of Lamar.
While we're doing that, do we have any other projects that are under construction right now?
No, sir, that's the final project to start off the new year. We're hoping to finish
Okay.
that project
Yeah,
up this summer.
I'm just curious, because while we're doing that, you might as well just all bring the, any project that we have that's under construction and give us an update on all of them.
Yeah, that's the only one. We'll bring it.
Okay.
All right, board training. Are there any board training items to discuss? TASB EdCon 25 is what it's called. It will be in Houston this year, beginning on September 11th. If you're interested in going, please let Miss Noemi Garcia know at your earliest convenience so she can start planning on that.
Yeah.
Right. September.
September 11th.
In Houston. George R. Brown. Local.
Is it 14th or 11th?
11th through the 14th.
So both.
Ms. Garcia, I'm going to be out of pocket next week on the 13th through the 16th, TASB benefits meeting.
All right, thank you. The next board meeting is regularly scheduled board meeting will be August 4th, 6 p.m. right here in this building. With that, we will move into closed session. The board will now recess in closed session pursuant to one or more of the following sections of the Texas Government Code. Sections 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, 084, 087, and 089. No action will be taken while the board is in closed session. The time is now 7:41 p.m. I'll give you a warning that time. The board will now reconvene in open session. The time is now 9:03 p.m. No action was taken while the board was in closed session. We will move on to consideration of personnel. Dr. O'Brien, E1.
Give me 1 minute. I have to find my page again. Yeah, you're good. Administration brings before the... I went the other way. Administration brings before the board this evening approval of the 24 superintendent-approved elections and the 36 resignations as presented.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Guy and a second by Mrs. Barat-Timms. Any discussion? All in favor by a show of hands. Unanimous, motion carries.
Administration brings to the board for approval principal at Jesse Lee Pumphrey Elementary, Carlascio Smith.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem and a second by Ms. Barat-Timms to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by showing your hand. Motion is unanimous and it passes.
Next is a series of assistant principals. First, Vanessa Aruti as assistant principal of E.F. Green Junior High.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Barat-Timms and a second by Mrs. Guy. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands. Motion carries unanimous.
Next is assistant principal at Baytown Junior High, Shannon Suri.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Guy and a second by Mrs. Barat-Timms to approve this item. Do we have any discussion? There being no further discussion, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 6-4, 0 against, motion carries.
Assistant principal for Lee High School, Dr. Jade Cox.
Approve. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem and a second by Mr. Renteria to approve this item. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, and all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That's 6-4, 0 against, motion carries.
Assistant principal at E.F. Green Junior High, Kenesha Joseph.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Renteria and a second by Ms. Barat-Timms to approve this item. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is unanimous and it carries.
As counselor at Sterling High School, Imani Lee.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Barat Timms and a second by Mr. Renteria. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. There's 6 for, 0 against, the motion carries.
As coordinator of deaf education, Shauna Phillips.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem and a second by Mr. Renteria. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. There's 6 for, 0 against, the motion carries.
As coordinator of human resources, Brooke Bingham.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Renteria and a second by Mrs. Guy. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor? There's 6 for, 0 against, the motion carries.
As director, associate director of ELA K-5 Social Studies and Library Programs, Dr. Sarah Lawrence.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Guy and a second by Mrs. Barat Timms. Is there any discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor? The motion carries 6-0.
As associate director for science and health, Emily Oliver.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Guy and a second by Mrs. Barat Timms. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. I see 6 for, 0 against, the motion carries.
And we have a few student support administrators, first of which, as student support administrator at Walker and Crockett Elementaries, Courtney Flores.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Barat Timms and a second by Mr. Renteria to approve this item. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Seeing 6 for and 0 against, the motion carries.
As student support administrator at Ashbel Smith Elementary, Dale Baca.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Barat Timms and a second by Mrs. Guy. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor? Seeing 6 for and 0 against, the motion passes.
As student support administrator at De Zavala and Bowie Elementary, Latavia Bell.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Barat Timms and a second by Mrs. Guy on this item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Seeing 6 for and 0 against, the motion passes.
We have a few student wellness interventionists to employ, the first of which as student wellness interventionist at Impact, Latoya Jordan.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Barat Timms and a second by Mr. Renteria. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. I'm seeing 6 for and 0 against, the motion passes.
As student wellness interventionist at Gentry Junior School, Sandra Rios.
Move to approve.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
I have a motion by Mrs. Barat Timms, and I heard Mr. Renteria second it first. That sounded a little funny there. Do we have any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Seeing 6 for and 0 against, the motion passes.
As K-12 ELA instructional specialist, Amy Sasser.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Renteria and a second by Mrs. Barat Timms. Correct? Okay.
Correct. Second.
Do we have any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Seeing 6 for and 0 against, the motion passes.
As dual ESL instructional specialist, Letitia Chapa.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Mrs. Barat Timms, you're sounding tired.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a motion by Mrs. Guy and a very sluggish motion by Mrs. Barat Timms. It's still valid, legal, and acceptable. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please signify for by raising your hand. Seeing 6 for and 0 against. Motion passes. We're almost done, Ms. Barat Timms.
I'm good.
As
That's a little more peppy.
As the educational diagnostician, Brooke Boer.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve, a very enthusiastic motion to approve. Who was my second? I have a second by Mr. Sampson. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor? Seeing 6, 4, and 0 against, the motion passes.
As educational diagnostician, Denitra Shea.
Move to approve.
Say.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Brought-Thames and a second by Mrs. Guy. Do we have any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
You're really not talking tonight, huh? You got to vote.
Sorry.
Mr. Clem, you really
Second.
No, we're voting now.
Yeah, I was in that zone seconds.
Seeing 6, 4, and 0 against, the motion passes.
Yeah, I know.
We're almost done.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's not that funny, God.
He's on retirement
T-
mode.
I need to go home, go to sleep.
As TXRL K through 12, I'm sorry, K through 3 Literacy Fellow, Ernestine Jackson.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Brought-Thames and a second by Mrs. Guy. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, I was fixing to close the vote. Seeing 6, 4, and 0 against, the motion passes. Does that conclude?
That's
With
it.
no further no further business before this board, we are adjourned 9:13 p.m.